Let's work on W2 exterior brick on metal stud. This time I have opened a completed project, so you can see the walls, furniture, and we're going to look at the W2 exterior wall. So we're going to edit the type. Now, if you notice, this is from a different term. And if I click on edit, the wall finish here is a metal panel. And the exterior finish here is an Adobe brick, 90 millimeter. So there's a little difference. So what we're going to do is we're going to cancel this out. Again, duplicate this and highlight the name. Include everything. Highlight, remove the column, and click OK. Then click on edit. If you notice, most of the parts are the same. So metal stud, structure 1, 140, which is the same as this one here. 140 metal stud. It does have a qualifying specification, 600 millimeters on center. We don't have to add this when we are changing the name here, because we're actually simply selecting the material based on what we have here. We can, if we want to, rename this to show simply that. Now, again, before you do that, make sure you duplicate and then rename. So let me do that. I'll duplicate this and I'm going to say, change that, metal stud. And if I want to, I can include this. So I already have metal stud. I'm just going to include this description right here. Okay, right click, rename, and add that. So if you want this to show in your material specification for this W2 wall, then you simply rename or duplicate first and then rename. Now, here's the thing though, when you are duplicating a material, anything that you do to one will actually be also changed in the other, except for the name. So notice here, right? 5 plates, right? And likewise here, you see 5 plates. So what you want to do is, if you want this to be become a unique material, you want to replace, you want to duplicate this asset first. So that will be the asset of the materials. And notice that it doesn't now say that 5, what was that? 5 plate, right? It becomes plate number 1. So it becomes a unique material independent of the duplicate. So make sure you do that, okay, before you make changes. Otherwise, any changes you do to the asset, right, image and color will also be done to the original. So we're going to use this, click OK. There you go. And then the next one is 16 millimeter plywood sheeting. So it's 16 millimeters, the thickness is right, but I'm just going to change this to plywood, PLY, plywood sheeting, click OK, right? So again, you're going to select the core and then say insert to insert a new layer, and then add the material and change the thickness. So the next one is a 50 millimeter rigid insulation, which I have here. So thermal air layer. I think the last one we were choosing membrane layer. So make sure you choose thermal air layer, rigid insulation, 50 mm. And then here, with a 0 thickness, we add an air infiltration barrier membrane layer, which is what we have here as well. And then 25mm air, right? So that's the air here. We're going to say, instead of metal furring, we're going to change this to air. So there is such a material called air. Is it an infiltration barrier? No, it's simply air, right? So air space in between. So click OK. And that's also 25mm. And then lastly, we have the 90 Brick Adobe for the exterior finish. So instead of metal panel, we're going to place here Adobe Brick. Okay, so it's not in our project, it's in our library. So we need to click this up button to add it to the library, or sorry, to the project. Click OK and change the thickness to 90. So in your case, you are inserting each of this layer and then changing the function, the material, and the thickness. I'm just showing you how you can actually use a common or similar wall or family in this case, and then update it, but making sure that you duplicate it first. Now, for the interior side, so this one from the metal stud, these are the layers going to the exterior. So you can see here, exterior side. Now, for the interior side, we have vapor barrier. So membrane layer, vapor retarder, right? Do we have a vapor barrier? So you can always check, and you can always rename, right? So vapor, right? So it's a vapor retarder. Again, if you want it to show vapor barrier, then you can always duplicate and rename. So we're not going to change that. Vapor retarder is fine. And then a gypsum board of 13mm, which is what we have here as well. Okay, so that's our W2 exterior brick on. Now, this is on metal stud. So exterior brick on metal stud. We're good. And we already see here the preview, and click OK and click OK. So we now have that material that we can use for our project. Again, these are the walls that you will be creating.